She sold my late dad's car to her brother behind my back. Now, she's gone, and I'm left rebuilding trust and memories in an empty garage. I'm 33 male. My life's been pretty simple. Work, home, and my '71 Plymouth GTX. That car was my dad's pride and joy. We spent years working on it together before he passed. It wasn't just some old car. It was our thing, you know? A piece of him I could still touch. Every time I opened the garage and saw it sitting there, it felt like he wasn't really gone. J29, my girlfriend of 2 years, never really got it. She'd roll her eyes whenever I mentioned the car, calling it junk or a rusty heap, but I always brushed it off. Not everyone understands sentimental value. I didn't think she needed to. As long as she respected that the car was important to me, that should have been enough. I guess I gave her too much credit. Then her brother, T, came into the picture more and more. He's 35 and useless. Always borrowing money, never paying it back. One of those guys who thinks the world owes him something. I've lost count of how many times he's crashed at our place because he couldn't hold down a job or piss someone off enough to get kicked out. Jay had this weird blind spot when it came to him. He was her baby brother, and she always made excuses for him. About a month ago, I had to go out of town for work for a weekend. Everything seemed fine when I left. Jay was home, acting normal, nothing out of the ordinary. When I got back on Sunday night, I walked into the house, tossed my keys on the counter, and something didn't feel right. I don't know what it was, maybe just instinct, but I went straight to the garage. The Plymouth wasn't there. I froze. My brain couldn't process it at first. I checked the driveway. Maybe I parked it outside and forgot? No, the garage was empty. Panic set in. I checked the locks, ran around the house like a lunatic, thinking maybe it had been stolen. But there were no signs of a break-in, and all the other cars were still there. That's when it hit me. Jay. I stormed into the living room where she was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone like. Nothing was wrong. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I could barely get the words out. Where's the car? She didn't even look up. Oh, I sold it. You thought me there. You? What? You sold it? What do you mean you sold it? She finally looked at me, her face completely calm, like this wasn't the single most insane thing she'd ever done. I sold it to T. He needed a car, and yours was just sitting there. He paid $500 for it. I stood there, my hands shaking, my head spinning. You sold my dad's car to T for $500? Are you out of your goddamn mind? She rolled her eyes. Come on, That car is a piece of junk. You never even drive it. At least now it's being used, and we got some money out of it. I lost it. I could feel the anger boiling up inside me like never before. That car is worth more than your entire life, Jay. You had no right to sell it. It wasn't yours. Do you even know what you've done? She just shrugged, like this was all some minor inconvenience for her. She needed a car, and it was just sitting there. Don't be so dramatic. It's just a car. Just a car? I felt like I was going to explode. That car was my dad's. It's the only thing I have left of him. You had no right to sell it. Where's T? She gave me this look like I was overreacting, like I was being unreasonable for being pissed that she sold something that wasn't even hers. He's probably at his place, but you need to calm down. I didn't say another word. I grabbed my keys and drove straight to T's place. I didn't care what she thought. I didn't care about anything except getting my car back. When I pulled up, there was parked in the driveway like some cheap used car he'd picked up off Craigslist. My heart dropped into my stomach. I walked straight up to his door and pounded on it. T opened the door, grinning like the smug piece of shit he is. Hey, bro. What's up? Where are the keys? I'm taking the car back. He leaned against the door frame, still grinning like this was all some big joke. Nah, man. I paid for it. Fair and square. Jay said it was cool. It's mine now. I felt my fist clenching. You paid $500 for a car worth more than your entire life. I don't care what Jay said. It wasn't hers to sell. Now, give me the keys, or I swear to God. He just laughed. What's your problem, man? It's just a car. Besides, I already started working on it. You should have gotten rid of it years ago. My vision went red. I lunged at him, grabbing him by the shirt, slamming him against the door. You think this is funny? You think you can just take what's mine? You're going to give me the keys, or I'm going to beat the shit out of you. He shoved me off, smirking like he knew I wouldn't actually do anything. Relax, bro. If you want the car so bad, why don't you buy it back? I could probably sell it for, I don't know, $20,000? Sound fair? I could barely breathe. I wanted to knock him out right there, but I knew it wouldn't give me the car back. So I turned and walked away. I got in my truck and drove straight to the police station. When I got there, I told the officer at the desk everything. He listened, but I could tell he wasn't really taking it seriously. So, your girlfriend sold your car to her brother without your permission? He asked, writing something down. Yeah, I said, barely able to keep my voice steady. And now he won't give it back. The officer sighed, leaning back in his chair. Technically, that's a civil matter. It's not a crime unless you can prove it was stolen. Do you have proof of ownership? Yeah, I've got the title and all the paperwork. The car's in my name, not hers. The officer nodded. All right, that helps. We can file a report, but honestly, this is going to take some time. If you've got proof the car's yours, you could take him to court. But getting the police to just take it back, that's not how it works. I felt like I was hitting a brick wall. So what, he just gets to keep it until I go through the whole legal process? He shrugged. That's the system. But here's what I can do. I'll go talk to him, see if he's willing to return it voluntarily. Sometimes just having a cop show up can get people to change their minds. I agreed, not really expecting much. We drove back to T's place, and the officer knocked on the door. T opened it, and when he saw the cop, his grin disappeared fast. Mr. T, the officer said, I understand there's a dispute over the ownership of this vehicle. The car is legally in Mr. I's name. He's provided the paperwork to prove it. T tried to play dumb, but I bought it from Jay. She said it was hers to sell. That may be, the officer replied, but it wasn't her car to sell. The title's in Mr. I's name, which means the car belongs to him. I'd recommend you hand it over now before this becomes a bigger issue for you. T stood there looking like he was weighing his options. After a long, tense pause, he finally spoke. Fine, whatever. Take your stupid car. It's a piece of crap anyway. I didn't even care about the insult. I just wanted the keys. He threw them at me, and I didn't say a word. I drove the Plymouth back to my garage, my hands shaking the whole way. When I got home, Jay was waiting for me, arms crossed, looking pissed. You called the cops on my brother? I slammed the door behind me. Yeah, I did. You sold my car without even asking. You had no right. She rolled her eyes. You're seriously overreacting. It's just a car. I and T needed it more than you did. I stared at her, disbelief flooding through me. You still don't get it, do you? It's not just a car. It was my dad's. The only thing I have left of him. And you sold it like it was nothing. I can't do this anymore, Jay. You need to pack your things and get out. Her jaw dropped. You're kicking me out? Over a car? I nodded. Yeah, over the car. Over the fact that you don't respect me or anything that matters to me. Over the fact that you think you can do whatever you want, whenever you want, and there are no consequences. She started yelling, saying I was being unreasonable, that I was overreacting. But I didn't care. I'd already made up my mind. Every word she said, every excuse she threw at me, just solidified how completely disconnected we were. There was no coming back from this. I gave you 2 years, Jay. I said, my voice calm but cold. 2 years, and this is what you do? You sell the one thing I care about more than anything else in the world, without even asking. That tells me everything I need to know. She tried to push back. It's just a misunderstanding. You're being ridiculous. T needed a car, and it's not like you use it. Why can't you just let this go? I shook my head, feeling the weight of all the anger, hurt, and betrayal pressing down on me. It's not about the car, Jay. It's about you deciding you know better than me what's important in my life. You crossed the line, and there's no coming back from that. Her face hardened, and I saw something shift in her eyes. You're seriously going to throw away everything we've built over some dead guy's car? I flinched. That hit me harder than any insult could have. It was like a punch straight to the gut. She knew exactly how much my dad meant to me, and she still said that. I said quietly, stepping back from her, "Pack your things and leave. Tonight." She stared at me for a long moment, her expression turning icy. "Fine. You're making a huge mistake, Fine. Don't come crying to me when you realize you've thrown away a good thing." Without another word, she stormed into the bedroom, slamming the door behind her. I stood there, feeling a mix of rage and exhaustion washing over me. I could hear her throwing things into a suitcase, muttering under her breath, but I didn't care anymore. After what felt like hours, she finally emerged, dragging her bags behind her. She paused at the door, turning to give me one last venomous look. "You'll regret this." I didn't respond. I just stood there, watching as she walked out the door and slammed it behind her. The silence that followed was deafening. I collapsed onto the couch, running my hands through my hair. Everything felt surreal. The car was back, but the damage was done. I'd lost something bigger than a car that night, something I didn't even realize I was holding on to. The next day, I went straight to the garage, needing to see the Plymouth. I ran my fingers along the hood, checking every detail, every scratch, making sure nothing had been messed with. It was all there, intact, but the moment didn't feel like it should have. Instead of relief, I just felt hollow. I got the car back, but it didn't feel like a victory. The garage was quiet, too quiet, and every time I looked at the Plymouth, it was like something was missing. The car was intact, but I wasn't. I'd lost something bigger than the car. Trust, faith in someone I thought I loved. Jay was gone, and honestly, I didn't even miss her. I missed the life I thought we had, the version of her I wanted to believe in. But she showed me who she really was, and there was no going back. I thought kicking her out would feel like a win, but it didn't. Just emptiness. I drove the Plymouth around a few times, trying to reconnect with it, with the memories of my dad. But the feeling wasn't the same. The car felt like a symbol of everything that had gone wrong, rather than the bond we once shared. Eventually, I stopped taking it out. It stayed in the garage, like a relic of another time, another life. In the end, I learned that some things can't be fixed, no matter how much you try to hold on to them. You just move forward, even when you don't know where you're headed. If you're still here, thanks for reading. And remember, sometimes losing something you thought mattered isn't the worst thing. It's realizing who never did. Life goes on. I learned to be more careful about who I let in, who I trust. And the Plymouth? Well, it's still sitting in my garage, still a piece of my dad, and now a reminder of the biggest lesson I ever learned. If you made it this far, thanks for sticking around. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them, so please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this one.